Hello and welcome to Nikolay's genetics lessons, and in my previous about 8 to 10 videos I explained how to find inbreeding coefficient using simple pedigrees like this one, and today we are going to use next level of calculations where we already have one parent who is inbreed, and we have to find inbreeding coefficient for our proband Q. I already uploaded about 10 videos on this topic, how to calculate inbreeding, and it is highly recommended if you would watch those videos first, so it would be much easier for you to understand what's going on here, because I'm going to talk about some conceptual ideas very briefly, because I already discussed them in every detail in my previous videos. So basically what we see here is the pedigree represented here in a line form. On the top we see parent A and parent B who has child D and E. Parent A contributed 50% of genetic makeup, parent B also contributed 50% to child D, and the same 50 plus 50 to the child E. So let's write down what we see here in more familiar form of the pedigree, and here would be female, here would be male, female A and male D, and this couple has two children, and this can be children of the same sex or can be a boy and a girl. So one of them is D, another one is E, and as you see, D and E also has their children G and H, and also they contributed 50% to the child D. D contributed 50% to child G, and her husband C contributed another 50%. So let's put one husband here, another husband here. This is going to be C and F, and they both of them has children, but now sex is important. It doesn't matter who of them has a boy or a girl, but of course these two children have to be of the opposite sex, because these two individuals also have a child. So that's why here we have side lines, but here we do not see side lines. We see that individual G and H, each of them contributed 50% of their genetic makeup, so I is their child. So here is a G and here is a H. Individual H, and they have a child, so I would put a double line here. That means consanguineous mating, because as you see, this is siblings and this is going to be first cousins, and they have a child I. So also sex is not important, but let's put a circle here. So this is going to be female, female I. So now, as you see, we have everything that is shown here, and maybe this form is more familiar for you and more convenient to use than what we see here. And one individual here would be inbred, and this is individual that is going to be inbred. So let's put red sign here, and once again what we see here, we see that this individual I and individual J, so this have to be a male, individual J has two children together. So let's put a line between them, and they have two children, and this is going to be child L and M. So this can be children of the same sex, and let's put L here and M here. And once again they marry, individual K and N. So individual K here and N here. So K and N. And now what we see here is that they have two children, O and P. And now sex is important. It doesn't matter whether we put male child here or here, but these two individuals have to be of the opposite sex because they have two children. So let's say that here we have a male and this couple has a female, and once again this is individuals O and P, and one more consanguineous connection here, consanguineous mating, and we see that this couple has two children, child Q and R. So Q and R. So if you do not use two line diagrams that represent basically the same what we see here, this is what we have here, but in more familiar form. And now we have to find what is the inbreeding coefficient of this individual. But our first step would be to find what is the inbreeding coefficient of the individual I. Our calculations is going to be rather simple, so just follow the logic. Here is inbred individual, and this inbred individual has two parents, G and H. This is a very important step to find inbred individual and find his parents. Now we have to find common ancestors of the individual G and H, and as you see, both individuals A and B would be common ancestors of G. So individual A would be, say, grandma, and individual B would be a grandpa of individual G, and the same we can say about individual H. Both of these individuals here would be grandparents. So here we have two cousins. Next step would be to find how many rings we have here that goes from individual I to individual A and B. And here is going to be one ring, and this ring represents a gene flow from individual A to individual I. So individual I can get alleles from mother side and from father side, and be inbreed for some particular locus may have the same allele from the same grandparent. We call this inheritance by descent, and this is going to be one ring, and we also have second ring here that leads from the parent B and also goes through mother side, and gene flow also goes through the father side. Once again, whatever alleles individual B have, this individual can pass through the mother side and through the father side to individual I. Next step, we have to find how many nodes we have in one ring and in the second ring. So in the red ring we have one node, second node, third, fourth, and fifth. So now we have to use a simple formula where 1/2 raised n represents the probability that individual I would get both alleles from common ancestor A. But we have also here second ring, green ring, that would represent probability for individual I to get two alleles from the individual B. Once again, let's count how many nodes we have in the green ring. First node, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So basically, in this case, because we have two rings here, we have to add probabilities for individual I to be homozygous for both alleles that can come from individual A and B. So let's now use this formula and put numbers here. So basically we have to raise 1/2 in a power of 5 plus 1/2 raised in a power of 5. So 1/32 plus 1/32 would give us an answer 1/16. And this is going to be inbreeding coefficient of the individual I. And we also can write down this number as decimal number. We have to divide 1 by 16. And we are going to get 0.0625. And if we need an answer in percentage form, we just have to multiply this number by 100. So if we multiply this number by 100, we are going to get 6.25%. So as you see, this is going to be inbreeding coefficient of the individual I. So we can put this inbreeding here, 0.0625. We calculate inbreeding coefficient between 0 and 1. 0 means that individual is not inbred at all. For example, any of the individuals here are not inbred at all. This is going to be the first individual who is going to be inbred. And you may ask a question, is it possible that individual can be 100% inbred? And actually we can see this in some plants, of course artificially selected and bred to be 100% inbred, and we call such plants pure line. Also some of the lab mice can be 100% inbred, where say progeny would be 100% the same genetic makeup as parents. Mice naturally can be inbred because mice lives in, say, small communities like in barn, and that's why when we bred them we can get such high numbers of inbreeding. But with other animals usually this doesn't work, because after a couple generations we can see inbreeding depression. But this is not a topic of my video today. I don't want this video to be too long. So now we are ready to move to the second part of our calculations. Those here we see almost identical pedigree to the first one, except that here we have one child, inbred child, but here we see two children as children of the cousins, and here cousins that have one child. But basically this is the same pedigree. Calculations would be the same, with one exception, that parent I, so now we have parent I and J. Parent I would be inbred, and we have to account for this in our calculations. Once again, first step would be to ask who is the parents of the individual Q for whom we're doing our calculations, who is our proband, and this is individual O and P, O and P. Now, second question that we ask ourselves, who is the common ancestors of the individual O and P, parents of Q? And this is going to be individual I and J. So individual I and J. So this is going to be male. And now we also can make two rings how individual Q can get two identical alleles from both his, say, mother and father side, from individual I and J. And the first pathway would be as follows: through the mother side and through the father side. And now let's count how many nodes we have here in this path. And this is going to be first node, second, third, fifth, and sixth. And in our calculations, as you remember here, we do not count node of the individual for whom we do calculations. So here we also do not include in our calculations this node. So we only count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, excluding the individual for whom we do these calculations. So this gives us, once again, 1/2 raised 5, but this time individual I is inbred. So now we have to account for this fact, and we have to multiply by the inbreeding coefficient of the individual I. So we have to multiply by 1 plus 0.0625. So basically we have to multiply by 1, 0.0625. And I put 1 here because if we omit this one, basically we would reduce inbreeding. But when we multiply by a number which is greater than 1, we increase inbreeding. So do not forget to put 1 here. We just cannot multiply this number by this number. And I also can put this 1 in all these calculations here, but it was clear that here we do not have any inbreeding, so I just didn't use this part. But now we have to use this part to specify that individual I is inbred. So instead of this fraction and this decimal number, let me rewrite so everything would be as decimals. So 1/2 raised 5, this is going to be 1/32, 1 over 32, and if we divide 1 by 32, we are going to get 0.03125. Now we have to multiply by 1. 1 plus this number is going to be 1.0625, and the answer would be 0.03320. And do not forget that we have also second pathway, second ring here. So this is going to be our second ring. Individual J also can contribute same type of allele to individual Q, and this would lead to homozygosity of the individual Q and inbreeding. Once again, that means that individual Q would have two identical alleles by descent, whether from individual I or from the individual J. And individual Q has more probability to have two identical alleles from the individual I because individual I is already inbred, so has a higher rate of the homozygosity. Whether it can be homozygous recessive or homozygous dominant, but rate of the heterozygosity in this individual would be reduced. Now let's count how many nodes we have in the green pathway, and this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in the green ring we have 1/2 in the power of 5 multiplied by 1 plus 0.0. So once again, 0.0 here represents inbreeding coefficient, and inbreeding coefficient of the J would be 0. And if we multiply this number by 1, this is basically going to be the same number. That's why I'm not using this part of the formula in my previous calculations, because we didn't see that any of these individuals is inbreed. But this time I use for individual I for this ring to calculate how many nodes we have here, and this is what we got here, and I use it second time just to show you that if we put 0 here, it doesn't affect our calculations, because if we multiply 1 over 32 by 1, we are going to get the same number, 1 over 32. So if we divide 1 by 32, we are going to get 0.03125. And now basically the last step, we have to combine, we have to add these two numbers, and this is how we are going to find inbreeding coefficient of the Q. So this is simple number, so we don't need calculator. So the answer would be inbreeding of the Q equals to 0.064 and 45. And this is going to be inbreeding coefficient of the individual Q. And if we need an answer in percentage form, basically we have to multiply this number by 100, or move this decimal number 2 places to the right. So the answer in percentage form would be 6.45%. And this is going to be our answer today. I hope my explanation were clear enough, and now you would be able to solve analogous problems where we have multiple inbreedings, where one of the parents can be inbreed, and in following generations we also may have different inbreedings and many different rings. So this is not going to be my last video about inbreeding. I'm going to post more videos with more complex problems. By the way, I want you to pay attention. Here we have consanguineous mating between two cousins, and here is the inbreeding coefficient. 6.25% of all loci would be homozygous. And here we also have the same picture. Here we have two cousins that have a child, but as you see, because one of the ancestors was inbreed, now level of inbreeding increased, coefficient of inbreeding increased, and we see that this number is bigger than this number, so level of the homozygosity of the loci also increased. If you want to learn more about inbreeding, how to do more complex calculations, please subscribe for my new videos that I post almost every day. Thumbs up if you like this video. Please write your comments, questions if you have any. Share this video with your classmates, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.